Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. I am very excited about this podcast episode. We're going to be talking about a topic that I am incredibly passionate about. And the reason I am passionate about it is because I have learnt this topic of timeline from Claire, who we have on today as our guest speaker. And you probably already know Claire because Claire's been on my podcast more times than anyone else. You're second best to me. Yeah. So first of all, welcome to the podcast, Claire. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you, Jess. Thank you for everyone listening in. It's going to be a transformative chat, right?
Yeah, very excited. And, if you have heard Claire on the podcast before, we've done a whole spiritual awakening series. We've been talking
Mhm.
about dreams on here. And now we're moving into talking about a process in NLP, which is timeline. But if you are new around here, I would love for you, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, but Claire, but I would love for you just to introduce yourself and let everyone know who you are and what you do.
Oh, thank you, Jess. Hi, everybody. My name is Claire Chancellor, and gosh, what do I do? I am a master coach, an NLP trainer, now recently become an author, and yeah, love to work with really decisive women who step forward to empower themselves, step in their potential, and ready to play with all the things about being your purpose. So, whether that's exploring past lives or your soul's journey or quantum jumping into the future, yeah, I'm all about somebody living their best life. So, yeah, thank you, Jess.
So good, so good. I feel like every time I'm texting you, I'm always like, wow, your brain is and your mind is just so genius. I just want more of it. So, this is why we bring you on the podcast often, so we can get that. I want to share that with
I'm
everyone.
really happy to share because these dynamic conversations is just a win-win. Like, just the energy from us coming together, Jess. Like, this is a whole, yeah, I'm excited. Full body tingles.
Okay, so today we are going to be focusing on the timeline process, which is one of the processes that you taught me in the NLP certification that I did with you recently. And I think we just get stuck into it. If you don't know the process of timeline, this is going to be really, really cool for you. But if you do know, you know that the process of timeline is a full journey that you go on. And that's just how I see this conversation going. We're going to start from the very top and just take everyone through the journey. And for the listeners, Claire has kindly allowed, or she's going to be doing a process for us at the very end, but you will be able to find that through the link in the show notes below. Just in case you're driving or you're walking, it's definitely something that you're going to want to come back to when you do have a moment, and some space for you to just relax and be able to go through this timeline process, which is going to be so exciting. So thank you for that.
Yeah, well,
And
if we're going to talk about timeline, then let's give everybody that full experience. It's different when you're doing it one on one and the coach can personalize it, but yeah, I mean, we've just been doing a whole group session recently and it's just magnificent what can come from it.
yeah, absolutely. So let's start at the top of that journey. And for the listeners, I'd love for you to just talk about what timeline or the process of timeline is.
Okay, we'll start from the top. So, timeline is taught in NLP, so neuro linguistic programming, which is all about understanding how you communicate in your inner world to get the results and to manifest the results you want in the outer world. And I've got to tell you, when we get to the timeline chapter in NLP training, everybody's on the edge of their seats. It's just one of those processes that is just awe-inspiring. So timeline is based on being able to resolve people's limiting emotions, the frustrations and the heaviness that holds them back. And by tapping into when you first experience that negative emotion, such as anger, we can use the power of the unconscious mind to gain new perspectives. So instead of being triggered and going into anger, the unconscious mind will release it. And it's like, wow, I've now got empowering new decisions. Is that how you would describe timeline, Jess?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like timeline is such an impactful process. It's made the biggest impact on my life, doing the timeline processes with you, and it's created such really big change in my life for the better. And I've been able to manifest in some beautiful things into my life, some beautiful feelings, a new way of being, new versions of myself, which has just been really, really cool. And I would love to know how does the process actually work?
Yeah, well, if we just take a small step backwards and we think about having a human experience, our intuition is driving us towards what we want, whether that's that money, health, relationships, all the things. That's what you were just talking about, your goals. And when we think about the not having the goal, not having that manifestation in, sometimes that can bring up that level of, stress, anxiety, burnout, feeling tired, insecure. If you're trying to attract in clients for your business or something like that, or the house, and get white knuckled and like, why isn't it happening for me? Well, we are in a reality of cause and effect. And if you've got that continual energy of frustration, focusing on lack, focusing on it not being there, whatever it is, then we need to go and resolve that limiting energy, which means going back again to understand why it's in place. So timeline will work by first identifying what is the limitation that's holding you back from what you want. Many times when I'm working with clients, there's a level of insecurity or not being heard, not being considered, especially with the empaths. And they're showing up in their business or they're showing up at home feeling like just completely not appreciated. And what timeline will do is take you back to when that program or that belief got installed in you about how much you do have to give and show up and help others. And typically, this example would go back to when you were a child in the home, got to overgive or people please, make sure everybody's happy so that there's a level of peace in the house. And we identify in that moment that that strategy worked for you when you were little, but as a grown up, it's not working anymore. So we're getting the learnings in which will allow the freedom to delegate or have boundaries or to speak your truth. And so from that process that only takes 20 minutes or 20 minutes to an hour, depending on how complex the situation is, the mind lets go of the tension, the body lets go of I can't do enough. And you start to actually attract in the ease and the new attitude to say, hey, can you help me? And people are like, yeah, cool, like let's get on board. It's again, I've probably given you a really long answer, Jess, but I just get so excited about how simple the transformation really is.
Mm, absolutely. And we're going to speak more throughout this conversation about the different types of timeline or the places that we get to travel to. But
Yeah.
touching on, going back to that first time when you were a child and that program was created, there, this can create some incredible shifts when you actually go back to that place and you start to notice the positive learnings from that. And this is everything that you have taught me. But when you start to notice, you see the current perspective that you have that's playing in your unconscious mind, you're able to see that perspective, and it's usually quite a heavy feeling. And you've made either like a limiting decision or you have these heavy limiting emotions that are really holding you back in your life today. And just that feeling of being able to see this from a different perspective and seeing those positive learnings, it just lifts that pressure so much. And that's the way that I feel when I've been doing timeline anyway. It almost brings such a light to that
Right.
certain time. And because we know that even though this is in our unconscious mind, this is almost what like one of those core memories, but for our unconscious mind. So this is actually the programs that are playing out. And when we shine that light into this and take that pressure off, that core memory is still there, but there's a different perspective on it now. And that's the new perspective that and the new program that gets to run the rest of your life or sort of influence the rest of your life. And
Yeah.
that's how I feel the process of timeline goes. Anyway, for me, I remember there was the very first time I did timeline with you. I've actually spoken about this on the podcast, actually. But, I had this really huge fear around people leaving me, whether
Yes.
that be through death or just like abandonment almost. And I had been trying for years and years and years and years to just almost get rid of this fear, just like not have it there anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we went back in and went back to the first time that I felt this. And this is when, just to give a brief description of it, I was going to school and I actually would cry all the time when my mum would drop me off and I would never want her to leave me. And every time they locked the doors and everyone would have to pretend like the classroom was just happening and I wasn't there and just to let me settle down. I was 5 years old, and every time I watched her walk up that path to her car, it felt like she was leaving me for good.
Yeah.
And even though in true reality, she was actually just going to work and then she'll pick me back up at 3 o'clock when school finishes. But as a kid, I didn't, that wasn't the meaning that I had. The meaning that I put on this was that she's leaving and she's never coming back. So either way, that created this first program for me. And then every single time in my life, eventually she did leave me, but then so did other people as I grew up. I had boyfriends and then they would leave me, or every time, I was working on the super yachts. So every time someone would leave one of the yachts, it felt like they were leaving me. And that was the pattern that started playing out in my life. So this started to rule my life. So when I found you and I went in and did that timeline process, I went back to that exact moment and that story that I'm telling you about being in the classroom. And I shone a light on that, and I was able to see that from a different perspective through doing the actual process. And now I look back on that time and I think about that actual memory in my head, and I see this little girl at that door smiling and waving to her mum, leaving, going to work, because I now see what was actually happening. And so this is how I feel like it can create such huge shifts in people's lives. Like I've experienced it. I do it with my clients as well. And I guess that's a really, really cool segue to go in, how that's one example, obviously, from me, but how can this process really make huge drastic shifts in people's lives for the better?
Yeah. Well, as you've articulated there, Jess, that there was this moment in time, if we backtrack just to help the listeners understand this, there would have had to have been a time, maybe the very first day of kinder or the first day of school, where potentially your mum was overwhelmed with emotion. My baby's going to school. And potentially you, as a little one, looked up to mum, seen her crying, and almost said to yourself, oh my God, what does she know? I'm not safe. Don't leave me. And it's a whole sort of program that gets created in fear and shock and anxiety. When the truth is, your mum was just like overwhelmed that her little one's, turned 5. But our minds are, looking, scanning for meaning all the time. And so this glitch in the meaning that you put to it, people leave me, it generated like a scar, like a separate aspect of you who went into a bit of a panic every time there was a hint of somebody leaving. And so that program now gets activated. That 3 year or 5 year old, I should say, is now ruling the show. Don't leave me, and what's wrong with me, and all of the things. And so I imagine and I've witnessed you changing that. So you're welcoming people into your world, you're welcoming new changes, you're welcoming new learnings, new podcasts, new information. And so from that one moment in time when you were little to like just letting the grip of that moment go. And I've got to say, integrating that, because a lot of modalities say, okay, acknowledge the 3-year-old, but they're not in charge, push them to the side. And I'm like, if you are on a quest to come into alignment, integrate, bring that aspect of you, that 5-year-old, the 3-year-old, the 2-year-old, bring all of those into you so that they now get to let the adult you lead. So, and as you've shared your experience, this can be translated into moments where people have divorced parents, dad stepped aside, and it's like, oh my God, relationships generate hurt and people leave. When the truth is, dad loved you so much, he stepped aside because he didn't want you stewing in a house of chaos. But again, the mind will do what it does best and, yeah, create those limitations. And in NLP, we would teach that delete, distort, and generalize. You remember all of those subjects, Jess, that our mind is deleting, distorting, generalizing our reality. And, yeah, it can create big consequences from that.
Hmm.
Can't remember your question. I went off on a tangent, but did that answer the question?
Um, honestly, I just go with the flow of the conversation. I think so. We'll keep talking about it anyway. We'll go back to that. But when you were speaking, I was thinking about like how people can be so unaware of how these patterns actually play out in their life currently. Like as you were speaking, I was thinking about when I was on the yachts. And it feels almost ridiculous to me that when you're in the yachting industry, people come and go, you change boats yourself. And for me, it felt so painful. Like, and I just didn't know why it felt so painful. Um, but there was a specific instance where a new stewardess came on, and I said, oh gosh, I said to her, I'm just going to let you know now, we're not going to get close. We're going to be stewardesses together, but we can be friends, but we're not going to get close. And she was so offended. And I didn't give her anything else. But the reason being is because for me, I know that either I'm going to leave or she's going to leave. And if we get close, then that's going to feel like my heart is breaking all over again, just like every other time. And it seems ridiculous, but that's how it was playing out in my life. And I didn't even know at the time until I went in, did the timeline, resolved and dissolved that fear. And now I can openly have friends all over the world. And when they go to the next boat or the next country or whatever happens, it doesn't feel so painful anymore. I've taken off a lot of that pressure. So I think perhaps even talking about the some of the problems that people might have in their life today, but not realize how that is being caused by
Yeah.
their childhood or even beyond, getting into it a little bit further, but it may be in their childhood.
Yeah, yeah. And what I'm hearing you say there is that from what I lovingly call human coaching, you implemented your boundary. You said like, we're not getting close, da 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 da. These are the boundaries, and and so there's a bit of a giggle there, right, with the interpretation of boundaries. Like, this is my boundary. Don't get close. But what's happened is you've ascended and moved up so that you actually attract in people who say this with love, but like anytime I take my dogs to the park and another dog comes up, I'm always like, "Yay, friends!" And it kind of switches the energy from dogs sussing them out to like, "Oh, okay," and everyone's wagging their tails, having a good time. So that's that's kind of the metaphor I'm seeing in my mind, Jess, of you like, "Yay, friends, let's play."
I mean, yeah, definitely. I think a dog is definitely one of my spirit animals too. So, yep.
Well, with that, with what you were talking about, with the worrying about people leaving, and not going too much into your privacy, but this could have created big health issues if that had stayed in place, the fear, the resentment. We're talking about chronic health problems that you literally rewrote your future. So you weren't on the path of bitterness, resentment, who knows, autoimmune issues, cancer, head colds, lung issues, bowel issues. Like, you've literally drawn a line in the sand and said, I'm choosing better. And even with that choice, you've been able to now step into your own business, generate your own money, generate your own clients. all from that time. Well, you obviously not all from, but from the timeline process, I love this, Jess, because I get the sense that when we release those limitations, we're almost coming up to a new frequency, like a new timeline. So, like changing the channel on the TV from a heavy duty grief movie, change the channel and tune into like a really good, I don't know, like blockbuster movie. And and that's your life. That's the frequency that you're now playing at. Like, sorry, I
Mm.
get all excited. Hopefully this is making sense. But instead of living to like imposter syndrome, social anxiety, judgment, rejection issues, lack of confidence, loneliness, the power's in your hands to go back and find out why that program is running. When I think
Mhm.
about when I think about how lonely people are talking about, or the depression and the anxiety and what that's doing to society and bringing us all down, let's have a quick look at that, because depression tells me, if I've got a client with depression, it tells me that they've been wearing a lot of masks and they've been shooting all over themselves, like doing what somebody else said that they should do. And it didn't align and it didn't work. And so they've got all of this evidence. Life is too hard. I just need to sleep. I need to have a deep rest. Because based on other people's ways of generating security, it didn't work for me. And so people will do depression from that. And of course, we can use timeline to go back and say, when did you hand your power over to somebody else? Somebody doing anxiety, it tells us that there was a chapter where they were on their merry way, little one skipping, and then the rug got pulled out from underneath them. And their unconscious mind said, "Never again will I be on my merry way. I need to be on alert, look out, worst case scenario, eggshells." And the anxiety is actually in place from that perspective to actually look after you. And so we use timeline again to say, wait a minute, what's happened here that's created that ripple? And then that other one, the loneliness piece, people who are feeling lonely, does tend people can healthily be alone, alone in your garden, whatever, go alone for a walk. But if you're feeling loneliness, this tells us that you've invested so much of your identity for others, being in the business of others. And so when you're not there fixing, helping, rescuing others, it's like, oh my gosh, what's my worth? I feel lonely. All the things. So when you can unpack what is the limiting emotion, this ripple effect will change. It's so cliche, but it will change people's lives like a dominoes in all different directions, because we really are targeting, yeah, root cause. Just one point on that though is that when I've got to sidestep as I do, if somebody's got a fear of spiders, we can do all the work to resolve the fear of the spider, but they also need to have the strategy now that if a spider's in the house, how do you get out of it? Like, how do you get the spider out of the house? It's the same with depression, anxiety, loneliness, health issues. You can't just resolve this in one session. You actually have to set the client up and implement strategies for success. I'm waffling, but it's not. Timeline is brilliant. It'll resolve stuff, but now your world has changed, and the coach needs to be able to put things in place to be able to support that new growth. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And my brain is going to, okay, for those who are like, but like, what's the order of it?
Mhm.
What's the order of it working? This is the way my brain works, everyone. So I'm assuming that your brain works the same way. So essentially what happens, like you might be a coach yourself that facilitates these processes, or you might be someone who's completely new to this. And the coach will come in and they will ask that they will create the conversation, ask the specific questions, and deepen the conversation based on your unique needs or your story. Your coach will be able to pinpoint what the actual trigger is or what the actual problem is, because a lot of the time we think the problem is
Uh,
this, but it's actually not the problem. It's just what's happening externally, or like what's the mirror symptoms of it. So the coach will come in, they will create this conversation, they will pinpoint what's actually happening there, and then they will be able to go in and do this timeline process so that they know exactly what that limiting emotion is, or what that limiting decision is, or what the limitation is that's actually holding you back from wherever it is that you want to be, or whatever it is that you want to manifest into your life. Um, so it's really funny because we're like, wait, did we answer the question? And I was like, I can't even remember what the question was, but I feel like that was the question. Do you have anything to add to that?
yeah, it sounds like you've had from your experience when you were sharing like how you were doing boundaries, like yeah, we're not getting close and all of that. It does it does indicate that again that loving expression of mine, like human coaches could have told you how to implement your boundaries, how to be more direct in your messaging, how to do all the things. And timeline will actually bring in the knowing that the boundaries wasn't actually the problem, it was that wounding that was the problem. So timeline gives you a really big advantage to be able to get to that root cause
Mm.
rather than the surface level stuff.
Absolutely. And as we've heard, and you said it before, this process can help rewrite your future. And something that you said to me, and it stuck with me, and you also texted it to me the other day, is that your past does not dictate your future, but a lot of people think it does, or even if that's consciously or unconsciously. So some people may fall into that victim mindset of, well, this is just the way I am, or this is just the way
Oh,
I was brought up,
that's
or
such a trigger for me.
oh, and it's like, well, when we get to the good stuff and are able to open ourselves up to healing those wounds through processes such as the timeline process, we realize that, I guess those wounds can be healed and we can rewrite our future, like you speak about. And this is when all of that yummy stuff comes in, you get to manifest in what it is you desire, whatever it is your soul craves. So yeah, I'd love to speak all your opinions on, your past does not dictate your future, and how you can rewrite your future. No, sorry. Yeah, your past does not dictate your future, and how you can rewrite your future.
Yeah, yeah, that's always a trigger of mine where people are like, oh, it is what it is, and you're like, no, if
Mm.
you're frustrated, if you're triggered by it, we could definitely do something about it. Hence why I work with decisive people. Like, yeah, we're ready to shift this. Even even if somebody's in a relationship where they're suggesting like he's got a problem and he needs to wake up to himself and blah blah blah. Well, actually, you're the one that's speaking for a client. You're the one that's got the problem that he's not taking action. What is it in you that's allowed that, what buttons are being pushed. And again, timeline will take you back to a moment in time. Who knows where it will take you, but it can take you back to a time where you were reliant on other people to make decisions, or reliant on somebody else being the master or the authority or the something. And so you're waiting for somebody else to then dictate what you do. And yes, I'm not sure where I'm going with that one, but again, timeline will be able to help somebody get back on that path of being at cause where they're making the decisions that are more in that state of leadership for them, their family, their career, their health, their wealth, all of that. Thinking about people who've got money blocks. I was talking to somebody just yesterday and like, I have a problem with the money coming in, Claire, but I have a problem with the money going out. Like it's like water through my hands, but that's not a money block. And I'm like, isn't it? Like, it sounds like a limitation to me. And when I've worked with clients with money issues, there's always been a pattern about receiving, their self-worth in receiving, how much they feel comfortable in the give and the receive balance. because those people with those types of money issues tend to be give, 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 make it about the other person. And so, yeah, when people say, what are you going to do? Like, we're going to do a lot of things. We're going to change this if you want it.
Yeah. Oh, okay, this is really good. This is why I love this conversation. And so, yeah, absolutely. Leading on from that, it's like, um, well, what happens, uh, you know, towards the end of the process and after the process, right? I get a lot of, no, I don't. I have heard a lot of people saying, well, what do I actually got? What do I actually go and do? Like, how is it? Like, it's all changing energetically, right? There's
Yeah.
shifts happening within your body, within your unconscious mind. And for me, we spoke about this on a group call recently. For me, it's about sometimes you don't necessarily see like that shift straight away. It's a gradual thing over
Mm,
time where all of a sudden you realize, oh, I'm actually not doing that thing that I used to do anymore, but I didn't even realize. And it's just like, I feel like you use the words healing amnesia. So
yeah.
what's actually happening for us, towards the end of the process and also the following days, weeks after, that's helping us to rewrite that future.
Yeah, good question. From my own personal experience, you've spoken about your mother. My mum was adopted, and so she had created a whole level of enmeshment, like, we breathe the same air, like you are mine, and like there's a whole thing there for her. And my being represented her identity and her reputation, all the things. So I had to use, as a child, that worked, this is great, bake cookies and Play-Doh. But when I've then met a man and had my own children, like her, yeah, she went at all sorts of different crazy levels with love. And so I had to go do some timeline to work out, okay, what's going on within this codependency kind of relationship and the guilt of stepping aside from her and all the things. We went back to, and this is where timeline will take you, but in that particular instance, we went back to a past life where the soul of me and my mum, she was persecuted, hung, oh no, not hung, burnt, not burnt as a witch, but there was some level of separation. And our souls had come back into this lifetime to create that balance, to see that the separation wasn't eternal. And once I got that, the guilt eased, the codependency lifted. And while my mum was still trying to dance the dance of enmeshment, I could see it for what it was, take a step back, breathe, be okay to be with my children and not
Mm,
invite her to the park and all the things, and know that it was in her best interest to also have that self reflection, to seek out her own coaching, healing, whatever she needed. So you make a really good point that sometimes you come away and it's like, well, where's the big bucks in the bank? Or, what's the hard conversation to have? And sometimes it's just that gentle exhale that you don't have the pressure of doing all the things. And so
mm,
it frees up the space to create what you want to create. From that experience with mum, I could show her how I wanted to love and support my daughter, so that mother-daughter relationship, and let Lily fall off the swing or whatever it is, because I'd already, do you know what I mean? Like she could fall, and I could also build her confidence to get back up rather than what my mum did, and like never let me touch the ground.
mm, yeah.
So yeah, so there's all of these different teaching moments where you kind of don't know it's happened until you know, you're not going into a state of panic. And that's that healing amnesia. And it's one of the reasons why I won't let a client actually record their process, because I don't want them to activate that back too strongly. Would you
Mm.
agree though, Jess? Like part of that healing amnesia is kind of lovely when you're like, oh yeah, like it's it's not a thing anymore. It's done.
Ye- Oh, absolutely. And it almost feels like that sense of internal acceptance, surrender, and peace, like inner peace
Yeah.
almost of, and this is where the quality of life improves because you're not, like you say, you're not feeling that heaviness of the guilt anymore. You can just see the situations for what it is and understand what is in your control and what is out of your control. Therefore, you allow your mum to seek out her own sort of coaching and you allow yourself to, from, seeing this bigger picture, do it the way that you want to do it, be the mum that you want to be, or that mother-daughter relationship, which is really cool. So, it feels like that healing amnesia and not necessarily, in your words, seeing the big bucks straight away. It's like that level of inner peace, and just
Valuable.
how things feel a lot more easy and
Yeah.
effortless to continue your journey of life, which is
Yeah.
really cool. Love that. And I feel like this is the perfect time. I feel like I've been holding off, but I want to talk, a little bit more than just the inner child, because obviously we know we can go back to healing the wounds of the inner child and all of that, but there is so much more to timeline. And I know you're itching to talk about it, and you touched on it a little bit with past lives. So I would love to know, where are the places with timeline that we can travel to?
Yeah. So in NLP world, we teach that there are four different destinations that we can go back to. So inner child, in the womb, past lives, and ancestry. And to be honest with you, Jess, and I know it's conversation for another day, but I'm going to soon introduce the Be Your Purpose method, which will introduce the fifth location of between lives, because that's a lot of fun. But we'll stick
Yeah.
to our conversation you
I've
originally
been there with
mentioned.
you. Yeah, I love it. That is a lot of fun. Cool.
So, what we know in our soul's journey is that we will gain different lessons from different experiences. When you have the issues of, if you're a soul who's put their hand up to learn about fitting into a tribe, fitting into the rules of the tribe, and all of that, then yeah, you will put your hand up for some interesting challenges within the childhood side of things. So that comes up with what we've already talked about, the separation, the rejection, needing to be part of the tribe. A lot of that anxiety will come from in the child. The other place that we can go back to is past lives. And past lives is fascinating. I absolutely love facilitating past lives because if you've had a theme play out in a past life of betrayal, being stabbed in the back, lost a child, made a vow of poverty, all of the things, then this can impact your soul's growth in this lifetime because you're still operating from challenges that have happened in the past. Then the next one after that, which I'm so excited to talk about,
Mhm.
we recently did. I'm recording my timeline course, and we as a group went back on the ancestral lineage. The ancestral line is going back throughout your DNA. In our group, we looked at when did your ancestors actually dial down their intuition to fit into the mainstream. Other clients may go back on their ancestral lineage to work through obligations, following the authority, doing things how they were for survival, that feminine suppression side of things. So the ancestral line will solve a lot of those issues. And then lastly, here we've got in the womb, which we're going into next week, right, Jess?
Mhm.
Going back into the womb is one of the most surreal, wonderful experiences. It always comes back to commitment issues or the need for external validation. Sometimes it can be social anxiety will be solved going back to the womb. When you think about the chapter in a soul's journey to be in the womb, they are like on a bridge in the womb between making the commitment to continue that soul contract, to continue coming back into this world, or like, no, I'm going to exit. Of like, so there's a whole interesting thing here with relying on the commitment of other people for your survival. And as a very quick example, if you've got a father who's kind of not sure if he's the father and should be invested and all of that, sometimes the baby can pick up on that doubt, and they will create the program of needing to do more to prove their worth, to prove that they're worth spending time with and investing in. And the ripple effect of that can then be issues in adult relationships where, like, oh, I don't know how much I have to do to be committed to this relationship. So yeah,
Mm.
each different place, each different destination that the unconscious mind can take us to will bring in incredible patterns of healing, huge ripple effects, huge. But
Yeah.
yeah, they're the four locations.
Yeah, yeah, it's all fun stuff. Like I find this stuff so fun. So we did do a group ancestral timeline a few
Yeah,
nights ago. Yeah, a
yeah,
few nights ago, and it's something new to me. It's more of a newer
yeah,
experience because I've done a lot of past life things.
yeah,
But it's a newer experience for me, and it's really so fascinating just to see how different, the lineage or decisions your ancestors made or whatever has happened within your ancestors, how that can really ripple into my life today. And the way that I see it is the reason that I get to do this work and look at my ancestral lineage and the decisions that they made and if they serve me now is because I actually want to be that. I want to be that one to break it
yeah, yeah,
for myself, but also for the future generations to come from me as well. Uh, Going into it a little bit, when I visited, well, within that timeline, what happened was my family or my ancestors, it was almost like they were a king and a queen and they had two young kids and they had done something wrong. I'm not sure, but essentially what they ended up doing is they were hiding. They ran away from the royal, they weren't royals anymore. They ran away from the kingdom and they were being, people were looking for them and searching for them and to give them whatever consequences were set out to be. And so they made a decision to hide and go and live in like a small village that's more of a harder life. Real small village living where you have to walk miles to get the water. And so that felt like their safety. But they were always suspicious. And I know that we were speaking about this, and there was this level of they could have chosen an easier way, or they could have chosen a harder way, but they decided to choose the harder way of living. And that sort of ripple affected or rippled down into the generations. And I see that happening with some of the decisions that, my family that are living now, or, that I've
yeah.
experienced life with, have made. And I noticed that within myself. Where am I making things really hard for myself? And I can give you a million examples, but this is why I'm here to break that. And so this is where, and for me anyway, ancestral, going back and doing the work with our ancestral lineage is really, really, really cool because you can see this. And now that, it's all about awareness first. You get to become aware of what it is, and then you get to make a choice of how you're going to move on with it. Are you going to continue? Am I going to continue making things hard for myself, or am I going to do the work and make life easy for myself and for the generations to come? So I don't know. Do you have anything to say about that or ancestral lineage and how that can really help you rewrite your future and futures for your generations as well?
Yeah, it's just like it's a really great example that you brought up, Jess. And another one that may illustrate it for people is if you've had great great grandparents in the Great Depression and every little dollar counts and every little, got to use your tea bag twice to get every ounce of flavor out of it. You witness as a child, that's how things are. You got to, hoard every little penny and get every drop of sauce out of the tomato bottle until somebody says, "Do you?" Like there's an abundance of sauce, as a quick example. We just take on those programs from our caregivers, like that's just how it is. And so what you've
Mhm.
had is that experience to say, oh wow, like they were your ancestors were required to make a life-changing shift, and the stress continued to consume them, that it meant that it was now stressful to make a change, and they've handed that down. It's stressful, like, this is how it's always done. And then you've come along and like you've said, really? Is this how it's always done? And then yeah,
Mhm.
watch this space because the dominoes have fallen and Jess is stepping up
Mm.
back into that leadership.
Obviously, with all of these processes, there is the process goes, you go into a vision and you start to see the picture of what's coming up for you. And so I'm curious for those at home or for the listeners, what happens if someone feels really blank or if there's no vision coming up for them?
Yeah. So for people listening, like, okay, we know that somebody's got potentially like a level of anger that they want to resolve, or yeah, we'll stick with anger. And part of the script is to say, getting in touch with that anger. Is it all right for your unconscious mind for you to release this anger and for you to have conscious awareness of it? So we're requiring the client in that moment to trust their intuition, to trust the first thing that comes to mind, because the ego so often wants to like completely bamboozle us. So we have to trust that first thing that comes to mind. That's that truth that steps forward. If the unconscious mind is saying like, yep, I'm ready to release this anger once and for all, then the next question that we ask is, trusting the first thing that comes to mind. The first event of this anger, did it occur in childhood, in the womb, ancestry, or past lives? And the client will just, it's like toast popping out of a toaster. It's the most weirdest thing, like, oh, yeah, it's this life, or oh, yeah, past lives. And then the next thing that happens is the coach will say, well, how many past lives, or how many, how many generations ago? And again, a number will pop up. The next thing with the timeline is we go into a sense of relaxation. It's that theta brainwave that taps into creativity which gives us access to your soul's journey, floating up out of your body and traveling along your time stream to which the client has already identified. We're going about 3 lifetimes ago. Cool, that's the map, that let's go. And so the client will get to that moment and then they'll feel like there's no more, like we're here, we've arrived. And in that moment then the coach will say, okay, now drop into that event to see what you saw, hear what you heard, and feel the feelings that created this anger. I go into a little bit more of my script, but then it's like, okay, so noticing what's happening. Now, a client may now put the brakes on for a multitude of different reasons. We're either not back enough, early enough, fear has come up to the surface, or they really have gone into an event that is actually dark, like they've been dropped into a dungeon, and they're really like, I'm not getting anything clear, it's all dark. And I'm like, yeah, because like pretty angry that your freedom's been taken from you. So the the way around that is one, the coach must maintain that level of confidence, because if the coach goes into a level, oh gosh, what do I do? Mm, you've lost it. Like you're dancing the dance. You need to be in that leadership role for that person to also. So the first of all, the coach has to not freak out. Easier said than done if you're a first time coach. And then the second thing is like, oh, okay, isn't this interesting? Now, I may ask the client, that's interesting about the darkness or that you're not getting anything. What does the darkness represent for you? Or what does the nothingness mean for you? And a client will get some level of like emptiness or hesitation, or I'm feeling small or something. And then that will now pick up the pace again, that we're onto something. If the client's like, no, I'm not getting anything, darkness means nothing to me, great, then let's float up out of that situation and scenario. And now have the option to now bring them back to this now moment, or I can go do other fancy stuff. The client not getting anything doesn't ever happen to me after facilitating thousands and thousands of clients. I always have different kind of tricks around it, but it does depend on the client's model of the world. Uh, as an example, if a client is really spiritually aware, then that's something that they embrace as part of their identity. I may actually ask them to start to glow some energy from their heart space and have a look around. What do you notice from this perspective? Um, yeah, or if they're very logically minded, or like, okay, isn't this interesting? This darkness. Yeah, let's on the spot right now. I'm without a client example in my mind. I'm like, yeah, I would actually go into more logical answers, float up, and let's have a look at that scene down there, and the not, and the motivation to resolve the anger. So
Mm.
somebody who's analytical, I would go back and check in what's the motivation. It's a long answer. I'm so sorry. It's a whole teaching moment, but
We love the teaching moments. That's what we're here for. I can speak from the client perspective in that I actually have two small examples of one where, and this was actually one way that you have helped me. I think a really important thing is that level of rapport between the client coach and how the coach really builds that rapport and builds that relationship and starts to understand the client. And we'll talk about going off script soon, but that level of confidence that you say from the coach's perspective, but from the client's perspective and doing this with you, there was a specific time, I can't remember what it was about, but that's fine. I remember going into it and maybe I just had a lot going on in my mind, but I remember saying to you, well, the first thing that's coming to my mind is that I just see brown. It just looks
yep,
like brown and textured. And I was actually sitting there in that moment going, oh my gosh, I'm not doing this right. I'm not doing this right. But you really led me through that in such a way that felt safe. And you're like, oh, that makes so much sense. It's like brown and muddy. So really you just can't see clearly right now. So like what would happen if you just push through that mud and like just swipe that mud away and like what's on the other side of that? And then I'm like, oh, and it's this and it's blah 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 blah. And it's like, see, that's a really beautiful way that I felt really safe moving through a moment where I was like, oh wow. And then I was able to get deeper into my unconscious mind rather than like floating back up to my conscious mind.
yeah,
So that was one way and something that I can, yeah, say for the people who are experiencing timeline. And if you're ever in that sort of situation, it's just about taking a deep breath and then, sinking deeper into your unconscious mind and just trusting yourself. The other way is, recently the ancestral timeline that we did. At first, I didn't see anything and I fell asleep. And that could have been for many reasons, but I realized that it was around fear. It was around the fear that was coming up, and it was something that was new to me. Like I mentioned, that Ancestral was more on the newer side for me. And so I did it the next night, and then all of a sudden, that's when everything started coming through. And what I had done is I had just told myself, I'd set the intention that it's okay to like let go. It's okay to open up and to see what's coming forward. Like either way, I am safe. So I was able to create that internal safety with myself and then go in and be able to find the answers. So I feel like that's two sort of ways or perspectives from a client sort of experience that could help someone who might be experiencing timeline that goes through this sort of situation.
yeah. Two things on that one is with love and respect. And for the listeners who want to know Jess a little bit more deeply, is that Jess likes to go and get the answers or go on a self-coaching journey, get the answers, and then we'll come to the group. So the fact that this night was this newness was in front of a group kind of put some level of brakes on for Jess. Like, I'm going to do this by myself. I don't want people looking. I do. So it was absolutely no surprise to me that you fell asleep, and it's still gave you permission to like take in that information. So when you looked at it for the second time round, a lot came forward. But
Mm.
how somebody approaches coaching will tell you a lot about how they will show up in the process. You mentioned earlier about how important it is to have rapport with the coach and the client to be able to go on these really deep, vulnerable journeys together. And I've got to say, from a client's perspective, yes, you need to make sure that the coach that you want to work with feels right. That's 100% important. But also, from a coach's perspective, you want to make sure that your clients are being respectful in the way that they show up, even from that boarding call or that discovery call. If you do this to a coach where you're like, yeah, nah, like, I want a session, no, I don't, I want a session, no, I don't. The minute that even the client starts to put doubt in the coach's mind, has already sabotaged on some level the trust in the coach facilitating a heavy duty process or going there. If you're somebody who's, yeah, nah, then yeah, know that will now impact the coaching process. And so for me, going way off timeline, so to speak, but talking to fellow coaches, take notice of that yeah, no, and don't be clingy for to prove that those people should come in. Let those people go and allow space for the three or four, five people that are like yes, because that first call will dictate the next however many months of your program, right? So this rapport right at the beginning will dictate how deep you will go with the client. Is this something that you've experienced, Jess?
Yes. And it's an absolute invitation for someone experiencing that to go and get their own coaching done, right? Go and get timeline done for themselves. See why that need for the clients, right? Yeah, I've
Yeah, that
definitely
one
seen that.
too. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that healing journey, if and I say some people say, oh gosh, how do you know when you've cleared all your limiting beliefs and done all the work? And your soul's number one drive is for you to grow. And so going from like a single person business to hiring a VA to now having a team to now you're gonna have to shift and clear those things for your soul to grow, to expand your business and expand. So timeline is here for coaches just as much as it's there for the clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I still do timeline all the time and I'm a coach as well. And there's always going to be that next level, right? Which is cool. That's part of the growth, the human evolution.
Yeah.
Um, I there's like a few avenues that I want to take this. I kind of want to talk a little bit about past lives and womb as well, if you're happy to do that.
Yep.
Just the obviously we get the process, we get that we drop into our unconscious mind, and we see the vision. How how are we able to gain results in this lifetime or like now from a past life?
So I set the scene for my past lives to resolve something in this session. Going back and opening up the book, isn't that wonderful? You know, you were Cinderella and blah blah. Like going back and looking at the book is kind of boring. Setting the intention to heal something that's happening in this life, the fact that you've set that intention, the fact that you've been drawn to coaching, the fact that you've been drawn to past lives is your intuition working with you that there's a solution here. So somebody who's been doing lots and lots of IVF or having trouble with their fertility and it's not happening, and I've had plenty of clients like this, where you go back to a past life and their baby drowned or something horrific yuck happened and their unconscious mind has said, never again will I be on a pursuit for a baby. Like that just equals hurt, pain, suffering. What on earth am I doing? And from that moment of aha, where the unconscious mind says, "Yeah, okay, that was that lifetime. Wipe the slate clean. Let's not do this in a stressful, fearful lens." The mother now shows up without that stress, that unconscious stress will program running. You know, worst case scenario, what's going to happen? and their body's now at peace for that little one to actually attach and incubate and do all the things that babies are supposed to do. So the past lives one, I may have shared this with you before, is I've had a client come in where the mum desperately, or the woman desperately wanted a baby. We went back to a specific location. We found out that the little one had drowned, her baby had drowned. And then she left. Let's just say that was Sarah. And then Laura comes in the next session and she's like, I've got separation anxiety from my mum. We went back to a past life. She drowned. Her mother agreed, like, and it was like, oh, you two, like, did the same. But of course, client confidentiality, I cannot bring those two together unless I host a spiritual development group and hope they both come. So, so it's absolutely incredible. The and I could talk about this for hours, is like how our souls, yeah, interconnect and play. It's and that's why we always go back to like that soulmate or that connection with somebody that you've met. Like, I know you from lifetimes, and it's sort of like, yeah, you probably do.
I have goosebumps, my belly, belly buttons, I have butterflies in my belly. Like, wow, that is incredible. That the linking of that, the connecting the dots, that's very, very fascinating and very cool. There's something that I've not discussed with you before actually, but there's a conclusion that I've come up with from based on a past life and this life now. And I'd just love to know your opinion, but this could also be a really cool opportunity for people to see how you know, you can see what's going on in this lifetime, perhaps, and how you can sort of resolve any limitations that come from that. Going back to that inner child, or the inner, yeah, the child timeline that I did, the fear that I had around the abandonment and people leaving me. So that was all around my mum. So if you're new around here and you don't know, so my mum passed away when I was 7, which was 2 years after, that memory that I was talking about at 5. But I went into a past life. I cannot remember how many lifetimes ago, but I was running in a forest. I had a white dress on and I had a baby, but this baby had been stolen from me. So I was running after to try and get my baby. And it's like this monster had taken my baby. This monster wasn't hurting my baby. I knew that. But it was around that separation anxiety that you speak about. Like me being the mum, I just want to know my baby was safe. Like I just needed to know that my baby was safe. That's all. And so the connection that I kind of made, and I'm not sure if this does add up, but was that coming into this lifetime, it's like my mum was also separated from me. And the way that I see it is that I am that baby. And I know that I'm okay because I'm now living my life. She kind of came in as that glimpse. So I knew like that she was my mother. And the questions that she had and the way to resolve that fear was the question was, is my baby okay? Is she going to be okay? And I am now here as proof to be like, I am okay. Like it is okay. I'm okay and I'm living my life. And now I get to see from her perspective as the mum and my perspective as the baby of, I get to live both of those lives. I don't know. What do you think about that?
This one goes into again, that soul's journey conversation, that when our souls put their hand up to come here on earth, that we are here on a world that has time and we have duality or polarity, whichever direction you want to go. And so for a soul to set the intention to grow means that we put our hand up to come to earth to experience things that we don't have in the spirit world. So we look at earth and say, wow, love, hate, right or wrong, the whole polarity thing. And for your soul to be on a journey where there's this pattern and a theme about separation and how much of an illusion and how much the matrix and the ego wants to create separation versus the higher knowing that we have that unity consciousness, that eternal connection. So it sounds like your soul has done multiple lifetimes to really understand the polarity of separation and to debunk for everybody how much that's not always the case.
Yeah, it's just so fascinating, isn't it? That all of this timeline stuff and where we can travel to it's really fun. I feel like a lot of the times when, if we're in real time now and we're experiencing quote unquote problems or heavier feelings or whatever it might be, and I definitely have felt this before, is like, okay, going in and doing the vulnerable work, that healing work. Yes, it can be like, it can be vulnerable, absolutely. But also when it comes to things like timeline, I feel like it gets to be fun. We get to go off and play in past lifetimes and ancestral and the womb and things like that. Like
Yeah.
it's all of the wonderful and weird and all of it is welcome, and I just think that that's been a beautiful way for me to heal so many of the things that have come up for me in this lifetime already. But that's, oh yeah, yep, you have something.
Yeah. We don't always have to use timeline to go back to the negative, though.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah, to push forward, and yeah.
So we can definitely go back to, so if you've had a program where you're learning about separation, there must have been some lifetime or some soul's experience where you had the opposite of that. And you can use timeline to tap back into gifts that you already had about public speaking or playing the piano or being the artist or having the money. You can actually use timeline, which isn't taught in traditional NLP, to tap back into that mastery and bring in the confidence and the empowerment and the potential so that you can just step back into that role that's already been proven that works for you.
Yeah, yeah, thank you for bringing that up. That's very true. I
Not
I
always
also,
doom and gloom.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I also wanted to, a conversation that we have had recently is that time is speeding up, times are
Mm.
changing, and the way in which NLP was sort of originally structured or taught is very different to, I think, how I learned NLP from you. And I think that's because you have this way of modernizing the processes within NLP. I would love for you to speak about that and how we get to modernize these processes to align and build more of a rapport and whatever
Mm.
else comes from it with the clients.
So Richard Bandler and John Grinder, I believe they actually channeled in NLP back in the 70s. I do believe that while they may not identify with being super duper spiritual beings, like playing like Elvis having his inspiration for the music he brought to this world, I do believe that they also had that inspiration that like the times are changing, people need tools in their toolkit, and back then, we didn't have the internet, we didn't need that immediate gratification. So NLP could teach you some things, and then the trainer could say, now go away, play with it, take it to the next level. So a lot of the NLP scripts were kind of like dot points, like this is where you can kind of maybe take your client. And as time's gone on, I believe that time has sped up. The manifestations have sped up. The people's problems have also sped up, depending if you're going down a scarcity rabbit hole versus an abundance rabbit hole. So therefore, NLP has also had to modernize, update, upgrade. And in fact, I was one of the first in Australia allowed to teach NLP over Zoom, where previous trainers said, no, you must be in person with people. Like, really? Like, that could be a limiting belief sitting there. There's potential for these modalities, processes to upgrade so that in this modern world, for the modern people who are asking for the changes, it's like, yeah, we're doing this now on Zoom, you and I, talking to a variety of different listeners wherever you may be. And there's a gift in that. And so therefore the processes and the healing modalities also need to upgrade. Like we're talking about the ancestral lineage, just because that's how it's done doesn't mean that there's new potential, there's new ways to play with this. And in fact, that's what we did with the Ancestral Timeline group. We went back to see where your ancestors conform to the mainstream. and why they dialed down their intuition. And then we went and played, and we went and played with the higher self and activate the intuition in your DNA and did all the fun, fancy stuff. It was just, I'm still buzzing from that night. So, with me, with the books that I've written about, the timeline course and the timeline collection that's sitting here in front of me, I want to make these processes as user friendly, as dynamic and quick and effective, just as much as the time is speeding up. I don't know about you, Jess. Have you noticed that, like, when you're starting to go into your healing journey, where things may have taken 6 months to recover from, are sort of like, oh, cool, like, maybe 6 days or 6 hours. Like, you don't need to hold on to the heaviness for as long.
Absolutely. I feel like that also comes with the growth as well. And that's exactly what we're talking about, the growth and evolution of a human, the growth and evolution of the way that the world is going. And like
Mm,
actually even just speaking, I thought about this as you were speaking about being one of the first to facilitate over Zoom.
yeah.
I think that is so incredible because that means that more people across the world have access to learning NLP. Therefore, more people have access to having an NLP facilitator to do the timeline processes on them. So it actually gets to reach so many more people. Whereas before, potentially just being in person, you'd have to make block out certain amount of time just to get to the place that you're going to. Like it's just a whole lot of things. Um, so that in itself, and then also,
That that's why the training used to be, or can be, like 8 days straight. The trainer would hire a reception room for 8 days, get them in, fly in. The training's boom, 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 and it's sort of like, okay, now go. And you're like, what kind of whirlwind was that?
yeah.
And how disrespectful is that to your nervous system and all the things, like you're needing time to integrate and learn
Oh.
um so yeah, don't get me started on that topic, but that's where Zoom has, I mean, tonight I'll be facilitating timeline. We're going to be resolving fears and phobias and
Oh,
anchoring safety and doing all the things. And yeah, I'm so excited about it. Uh
yeah,
and yeah, and
absolutely.
that's where the next evolution of because I don't think it's actually commonly known that timeline itself is a standard script. If you go into NLP and they hand you a standard script, is it this life, past life, genealogical, or wombs? Okay, float above the event, notice the lessons. Isn't that interesting? Future pace, now come back to now. And I'm just going to, just bring my book up for my recording is like, no, mine has gone into all of the detail about the different themes, the patterns, the learnings, so that when your client does say, yeah, I've gone back to the womb, the coach can flick to that womb script and go, oh, let's look at mum's intentions, dad's intentions, the commitment stuff, and where I'm going with this. But yeah, the time is definitely speeding up, and the portals of energy and the new ways of coming in is just, yeah, it's just fabulous. No different than the inventor of a mobile phone bringing in the new activations. It's like, yeah, things are shifting.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's when it comes into being that building that level of confidence as a coach that's facilitating the timeline process. And something that I found as a coach and with my clients is that, when you do build that confidence and you have the scripts, but you're able to go off script as well, you're able
Yes.
to personalize it to the client themselves. I know I have clients that are really into gardening. So I get to weave
Mm,
in different, like planting the seeds and doing some sort of gardening analogies. And that really, I think this is also where the healing speeds up because it creates an even deeper level of safety and rapport because they're like, oh, they get me, like they know, and then they want to have, they want to do this, they feel more open, they open themselves up more to the process and potentially get that deeper healing or take on a lot more of the positive learnings within that process. And I've had clients that really love the beach or really love walking in underneath the forest or something like that. So able to go off script and weave in different pieces within what really fits into their world now. And so I feel like that's another way where I've been able to see the process of healing speed up as well, just by having it. I don't know if it's that deeper level of safety feeling within while they're doing the timeline.
Yeah, and but you also bring up um you also bring up a really good point there, Jess, about going off script, trusting your intuition, because for a client to have the problems that they're having, the logical world, the mainstream, hasn't provided the solution. And so, logically, like, what the hell are we doing here? Or what the heck are we doing here with timeline? Or like, the mainstream logical world didn't solve the problem. So let's indulge in the intuition and all of the beautiful messages and the energy that flows in from that full body tingles. Because what I know about going off script and having the confidence, it's like their higher self, the client's higher self. Oh, great, the door is open. I can give you insights, information. And if you're trusting your intuition with that level of confidence, like your clients must be having an absolute wow of a time getting results. Where if they'd gone down the mainstream, medications and counseling and all the thing, like it's just, yeah, who's got the time for that?
Absolutely. I was also thinking just now, like, I feel like there's just been this level of spirituality weaved into this conversation, obviously, because you and I are both very spiritual human beings. And I was wondering for the listeners at home who may not, or maybe at the very start of their spiritual awakening, even, do you have
Mm.
to be like extremely spiritual to be able to do this process well, or to be able to get the most out of these learnings?
Technically, no. Technically, you can be very logical and go back and have a look at the coach may pick up on someone who's quite analytical and just keep it to the child work, get them familiar with the process, and then expand it out to past lives. So it will still work. This is an interesting question from different topic is like, are you born with mediumship? Are you born with the psychic gifts, or do you have to be taught those gifts? Do you have to be taught your spiritual gifts? And the truth is, you wouldn't be asking the question if you didn't have that spark of light already lit in that area.
Mm,
So for somebody to say, well, do I have to be spiritual for this to work? And I'm going to knock on Jess's door to see if she can help me. There has to be an energetic match here that they're a bit curious and they need somebody to, again, light that spark up, breathe some life into it for it to come to the surface. So
mm,
I hear when you say, do you have to be spiritual for this to work? And I'm saying, if you've got the question already sitting there from the quantum and from your higher self, then the solution is sitting in front of you. It's up to you if
mhm.
you want to take it.
Yeah. And the way I see it is like well, sure, there could be levels of like how spiritual you are, I guess. But for me, like the base level is you self-connected. Like if you have any type of curiosity around deepening your relationship with yourself and connecting with
Mm.
yourself, then that is the beginning of your spiritual awakening. So it doesn't matter where you are in your spiritual awakening. Like if you like it's pretty much similar to what you're saying actually. If you have that question, then yeah, you're at that level. So it's like this is 100% going to be the solution for you. And so when I was thinking about this question, I was like, what is even a spirit, like what does that even mean? Like the base level is you're connected to yourself. If you've ever meditated, if you've ever thought about leveling up, I don't know, like that's that base level, and absolutely that solution is there.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
If the question is sitting there, yeah,
Yeah.
it is that self-discovery. And the scientific world already is switched on to how our emotions, generate illness and why they encourage a level of talking and exploring your emotions to be able to heal issues. challenges, problems. Science is on that cusp of putting it together. However, and it's a whole other conversation for another day, but the pharmaceuticals don't want us to let these doors open. So it's,
Yep. Okay.
yeah, for me, and for me, what I know to be, for me, from what I know with my experience, is that my body doesn't respond well to medication. It doesn't respond well to antibiotics and all the things. And that's where I've had to go and explore all the metaphysical connections, yeah, and the healing that comes from that.
Absolutely. And so we've talked about the four areas or places that we can travel to in timeline. And I know you said this is a conversation for another day, but it's really cool to know. I feel like that anticipation coming of like within your Be Your Purpose method, there's this new timeline script coming around in between souls. And I'm
In between
actually
lives, yeah.
sorry, in between lives. And I've actually done one of those with you, which is really, really cool. So I'm really excited for that too.
Yeah, that's quite when people are seeking out their purpose, going between lives will give you a lightning bolt of awareness, right? Do you remember that? Or were you asleep, Jess? No.
No, I wasn't. I was well there for that one. I was like, whoa, where am I?
Yeah, it's incredible. And people say, if they're signing up for a session with me with like past lives, it's like you will meet your spirit guides. You will go between lives. You will open up that book of Akashic records and all the things to discover what's on in those past lives. The thing is, though, you can dedicate a whole session about between lives, why you chose your body, how your energy works, who was involved in the write up of your soul contract. Like you can, yeah, it was, and yeah, there's a whole different realm that you can explore within parts of you in the astral and the multidimensional and other worlds. Yes, I when clients have gone on a journey with me, I will start to open up those doors for them to really dive deep in their purpose. So, yeah, lots of things to
Absolutely.
explore.
And I'm so looking forward to all of what is to come as well. Is there anything that is on the top of your mind that you think we haven't covered around this topic?
The only thing that I would add is just the to if you are a coach, check out my name on Amazon and grab yourself a book so you have the access to the timeline scripts that we're talking about. And if you're somebody who's curious about timeline and wanting to be a coach, then yeah, open up the potential for that for you to step into because witnessing you, Jess, like you're creating that ripple effect in people's lives and showing up and making things happen, right?
Absolutely. And I've got this book in front of me right now. It is something, if you are a coach, that is going to be so beneficial for you to have as your resource. You can flick through it. And not only are there scripts in it, but there's all of the learnings about, how to like the pre-work of timeline, the sessions, like session structure of with your clients, like how to prepare. There's a lot of the things in here. So absolutely. That'll be linked in the show notes below as
Oh,
well.
yeah,
Yeah,
thank you. I'm having fantastic feedback from people who've got it in their hands. I'm hearing that people are taking it on family holidays and sitting people around the fire, like, let's sort your stuff out. And I'm hearing clients' businesses absolutely thriving. Like they just open up the script and like everybody, let's play.
yeah,
So it's been a 10-year journey to sit down and write it, but it actually went a little bit like Wayne Dyer. Like I sat down for like 2 or 3 months and wrote it and went, here, book. And yeah, my husband going like, sorry, what? Like how, when did that happen? So yeah, the team, the guys, the guides, the higher self just got fully invested in getting this information into people's hands, and yeah, I'm excited about the next book, Jess. Even though we're talking about bigger purpose method, the next book is actually the scripts for healing, and yeah, as we spoke about the depression, the anxiety, the loneliness, the other stuff. That's in the next book. So
yeah.
watch this space.
That's the metaphysical one, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
There's a metaphysical
I'm
one, And then the team have said, my guides have said, then there's the what we were talking about, the between lives, the multidimensional, and then they've said this is a collection of 5 books. We'll see how my marriage survives that one.
Ah, okay. Well, I'm so looking forward to them. I'm so looking forward to that one, and I'm not surprised that you're getting really good feedback because yeah, not only is this going to elevate the coach in their coaching sessions, but it's what I speak about before, like so many more of the clients get to experience this deeper level of connection, this deeper level of healing, and it's just all in this book. So definitely go check it out. Um, but yeah, thank you so much for being here, Claire, and yeah, in the show notes below, you're going to find the link to the timeline that that Claire is facilitating for you. And just make sure that you're in like a quiet space, a private space, so that you can get the most out of this and really just embrace it. Open yourself up to this process because it is incredible. But thank you so much for being here, for sharing all of your wisdom, and for talking and having a conversation around timeline, which is just so much fun. And yeah, I love this so much.
Thank you, Jess. Thank you for asking all the dynamic and thought-provoking questions and yeah, being the spokesperson for everybody to know that healing can happen. You can accelerate and live that life to your full potential. Master your mindset, right?
Love it. Thank you. Thank you.
So, thanks, Jess. Thanks, everyone. Okay, so welcome back, everybody. What we're going to do now is we're going to go through a group process of timeline. And this is just an opportunity for you to dip your toe into the water to experience timeline. You'll either come away going, I want more of this, or you'll go, that was a bit of an interesting experience. But either way, being here, I want to share with you a process that I would facilitate with a group. It's very different to doing it one on one where it's really personalized. This process together, we need to set the intention to explore one topic. And when I've done this in the past, we've set the intention to look at why I can't have what I want, or why I'm not worthy to have what I want. Something along that line where we can explore where that limitation first came up, that limiting decision when you decided like it's too hard to have what I want. And what I would expect from this process is for you to just allow yourself to drop down the walls and barriers, be a bit curious about what's to come, follow along, and even if you think you're getting not much, your unconscious mind will still listen, it will still bring forward the ahas. Maybe not today, maybe tomorrow. From Jess's experience, she tends to get the ahas, after she's done some journaling and self reflection. Is that right, Jess?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, yeah, we're just going to leave the analytical mind to the side and just to embrace this process like we're just playing and exploring something new. I imagine that this process together will take about 10 minutes. And as just had said before, setting the intention, being in somewhere where you're quiet, uninterrupted. This could be even just sitting in the car, or it could be in your bedroom, or, laying down on a picnic blanket, whatever's right for you, as long as you just feel that cocoon of safety around you as you go on that soul journey. Do you have any other tips there, Jess, before we dive in?
Mm, If I'm in my room, what I like to do is kind of make it a little darker, just so that when I'm closing my eyes, it helps me a lot compared to having the windows open and things. So if you are in your room and you can close your curtains, that could help.
Yeah, good point, good point. Because I do know some of the more feeling based clients love to rug up with their doona and just be all in that smushy nest. So, whatever works for you.
And
How does that?
if you're not Australian, a doona is a duvet.
Oh, nest up, grab your blanket. Blanket translates, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And so, Jess, how do you feel about setting the intention to explore that limiting decision? I can't have what I want.
Yeah, I think that resonates like a lot. I can't have what I want, finding out what yeah, where in my life I feel that there's a few areas I could dive into, but I'm going to choose one.
Yeah, well, if we get a little bit playful with you, Jess, and just allowing the listeners, if this is their first time experience, it will be helpful to hear where you can explore the answers. So I'm really mindful of your privacy, but when you think about I can't have what I want, do you think about this in your home, your business, your family? Is there just a subject where you have that knowing or that limitation, I can't have what I want?
Yeah, I would say business.
Yeah. And so when you think about the I can't have what I want, what kind of feelings come up for you?
Hmm, feelings. I feel like it's more the negative talk that comes up for me of like perhaps that imposter syndrome of I'm not good enough or I don't do it good enough.
Yep, okay, that's good to know. So yeah, imposter syndrome, the doubt, the not enoughness,
Doubt,
yeah,
yeah.
and then the mind really playing a strong grip rather than the feeling into it. You really staying in the mind there, the questioning. When you, I know I've just projected that, but when you get in touch with the not enoughness, I can't have what I want. Where do you feel that tension?
Um, okay, right up my middle. So from my belly, diaphragm into my heart.
And so for people listening, that belly kind of area can hold on to fear, can hold on to shame. The rib cage represents how protected we feel. It protects our vital organs. So Jess is really being vulnerable here and embracing this opportunity to do timeline. Like I can't have what I want. There's a level of fear. There's a level of lack of security going on. Most coaches don't know that, and in this process, you don't need to know that. But I'm just letting you into my world a little bit here on how I approach this process. Jess, when you get in touch with that feeling of like I can't have what I want, sounds odd, but is there a color attached to that?
Yeah, green.
Yep. Is it hot or cold?
It's like it's quite cold.
Okay. Yeah. And so you're really connecting to that, like I can't have what I want. If we get a little bit playful with it and checked in, what's its purpose for being in jet? I can't have what I want.
Hmm. Its its purpose is because it's like something around it's not easy or it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, yes. So continuing on from your recent healing experience where life's hard, I can't have what I want, all the things. So this is awesome. It's at the surface
Oh,
to make a big shift.
I didn't even put that together. Yeah.
So for people listening in, if you were going in on a one-on-one coaching session, there'd be questions like that to really dive into the specifics of what's going on, helps you with the process. Knowing that this is a general process, taking a whole group through, I just want you, the listener, to check in with yourself about this can't have what I want. And in your mind, starting to notice where you're holding on to that feeling in the body, trusting the first thing that comes to mind. Is it okay with your unconscious mind for you to release this? I can't have what I want. And for you to be aware of it consciously. And you'll notice that your body sort of move into a yes. And if it holds back and it's a no, then listen to that. But for those who got a yes, like, yes, let's play, let's get into this. So, trusting the first thing that comes to mind, what is the event or the root cause when this belief, I can't have what I want, first came into you? Was it this life, past life, genealogical, or in the womb? And for those who said it was in this life, what age comes to mind? For those who said it was in a past life, when you decided you couldn't have what you want, how many lifetimes ago? And for those who said it was genealogical, how many generations ago? And for those who said it was in the womb, what month, what week comes to mind? Just checking in, trusting the first thing that comes to mind. What was the first time you experienced this limiting decision? I can't have what I want. And just noticing, is it this life, past life, genealogical, or in the womb? With that in place, what I'm going to do now is going to take you on a journey. And we're going to go on a journey together to really explore why this moment has had such a grip on you. Just trusting the first thing that comes to mind, weird and wonderful, the better. So, pressing play on the music, setting the scene, knowing that this time is just for you, trusting your unconscious mind, and I know that you do. Just invite you to float up out of your body, floating higher and higher, floating higher and higher, floating above the room that you're in, floating above the country that you're in, floating up really high, so it's like being in the stars or that stratosphere where Mother Earth meets the stars. As you're floating up, I want you to look down and notice there's that busy time stream of yours. Intuitively, you'll know which direction is your past and which direction is your future. And what we're going to do today is we're going to float all the way back along your time stream, going all the way back to that limiting decision, I can't have what I want. Because in a moment, not now, I'm going to ask you to drop down into that event, to see what you saw, to hear what you heard, and to feel what you felt. That moment when you decided you couldn't have what you want. And I don't know if it was this life, a past life, in the womb, or ancestry, but your unconscious mind will just bring up a moment in time, like toast popping out of a toaster. There'll be a picture, a memory, or a knowing. So as we float along your time stream, going all the way back, just to notice that you arrive above that event. In a moment, not now, I'll ask you to drop down into that event. It's on 3, 2, 1. Dropping down into that event to see what you saw, hear what you heard, and notice what caused you to make that limiting decision that I can't have what I want. Just notice, are you inside or outside? Daytime or nighttime? Is there anyone there around you? Looking at that event, just taking notice of what caused you to decide that you couldn't have what you want. Once you've gained that aha moment, just invite you to float up above that event, feeling the relief as you float higher and higher, higher and higher, higher and higher. And as you turn to look to this present moment, from this learning position, I want you to notice what were the lessons connected to that limiting decision, the learnings of which will allow you to let go of that heaviness, the tension that you can't have what you want. As you're here in that learning position, allow those learnings to come to mind. And noticing those learnings come up easily so that you can store them in a place where you store all of those special learnings. As those learnings start to appear, those lessons, where previously you were held back, it's like this ripple effect flowing all throughout your future. And just noticing how the old emotions connected to that just start to disappear. And for those who are still working on that, just noticing that you're at that first event where you made that limiting decision that you couldn't have what you want. I just invite you to float higher and higher, floating higher and higher, floating so high that the emotion and decision just disappear. Feeling that energy, noticing how the old event and the time streams start to shift and adjust, how they reevaluate themselves, knowing that you're free of that limiting decision. And so as you've got those learnings, just invite you to start to float gently back to now. But as you do, I want you to notice the events down there where you could have had the opposite result. But because of that old decision, you were held back. Getting those light bulb moments, those aha moments to shine on that path, looking at new opportunities, new choices, and getting a sense of new amazing possibilities. Feel the enthusiasm. Just start to notice how easy it is to lead a life with new decisions. The truth is, this is your life. And if your intuition is desiring it, it's absolutely time to reach your potential, that you can have what you want. Noticing how your time stream starts to shift and adjust, creating new opportunities, new possibilities. Breathing in that decision to have what you want. So as you start to travel back to this now moment, back to this time we call reality, I want you to bring with you these new aha moments, that confidence to trust yourself. And notice that when you start to trust yourself, The body frees up that energy, the body frees up that space, and it's just that highest potential flowing throughout your entire being. As this is now in place, it's time to start traveling back into the body, starting to wiggle those fingers and toes, heart rate back to normal, head held high, a big breath in, and when you're ready, opening your eyes to a whole new you. Bit of a journey there, Jess.
Oh, oh, I
Wow.
always love that feeling.
It's a little bit of a sample, right? You're used to me going more into the future and doing all the things, but as a sample, how did you go? You don't have to share your privacy, but how did you go gaining the lessons? Did they start to flow in?
No, absolutely. I actually will share. I was a homeless person. I was a homeless man, an old homeless man, and when I came back up out of into that learning position, I could start to see that I could start making decisions and create a new strategy to help me get what I want instead of staying stuck where I am eating bread as a homeless man. I can use the resources around me. There were a lot of people around me. I was in a city. So asking for help the right way and then just taking it step by step. And that's been my
Yes.
strategy to slowly get where I want to be. And understanding that it might not, it's going to be like a journey of these steps. And so that's what I got from mine, which is makes so much sense in my life today.
Wow, and it connects back to that piece we spoke about with the separation being a theme. Even when you are surrounded by people, possibly wealthy people, you still have that level of separation. And it sounds like, if I can project, it sounds like there's a simple decision to step forward, ask, and ye shall receive.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was incredible. Thank you so much for that.
And how long did that take? Like maybe 10 minutes?
Yeah, not long at all. Oh, wow. Thank you. Yeah, I'm so excited for what's been coming up for everyone as well, listening to this and what's going through their minds right now. It'd probably be a really good idea to get some journaling in, like you mentioned in the beginning. And there's something that I like to do is I like to go on a walk with no headphones and just think about what's coming up, and I actually have a conversation with myself as well, like out loud, and just start to go back through those learnings, and a lot comes up with me for that, so that could be an idea for those at home as well.
Yeah, and if you are somebody like Jess who likes to, assess what just happened, I would be looking for the patterns more than the specific wording of the lessons. So what I heard from Jess was that, yeah, one small step is that first journey is the first move, right, to making a profound life. A lot of the
Mm.
times people come to coaching and they want this big wow thing in 5 years. And often a good humble focus is, how do you want your Tuesdays to be? How do you want your Tuesdays to be in 3 or 4, 5 years? And look at the lessons that were coming up from that timeline experience about how you can incorporate that in a day-to-day experience. And of course, you can play with it one-on-one coaching and go right in for the big stuff. But checking in with you, Jess, before we wrap things up, when you reflect on that lesson, what is the potential, or what do you need to believe about yourself to take that first step?
I mean, I just need to believe in myself. I just need to take that step, to be honest. Like, I have this great sense of motivation or inspiration right now, and now would probably be a good time to take that step or think about what that is. Um, but I think what you say is just that trusting in myself to get to where I need to be or to get the thing that I want. Just I need to believe that I in myself. Mhm.
Yeah, so any moment there where it comes to the doubt and things dropping into the body, coming into the heart space, yeah, trusting myself. Like, I want this for good reasons, for good intentions. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Claire.
So exciting. Thank you so much too, Jess. We'll look forward to hearing what unravels from that process, that one small step turning into many genius big moves.
Absolutely. And we, like you say, we would love to hear. So please connect with both Claire and I on Instagram or, and let us know what the lessons were that came up for you or the breakthroughs, even putting it in the comments below. We love to connect with you and hear exactly what's been going on for you and your journey as well. So yeah, jump into our DMs and connect.
Yay. Oh, I'm so
Absolutely.
excited. Well, until our next dynamic conversation, Jess, I'll love you and leave you and talk to you later.
Thank you so much.
Bye.